So let's start with the first question, Kristyl, on what's happening if you look at broader in the insurance space. What are the 2 or 3 dynamics that are really transforming the way that insurance is looking at their business? If you, specifically in India, but happy if you want to give us an overview on what are the dynamics or forces that are shaping the way that insurance?
Well, I think the first most important dynamic is digitalization.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's not only for the insurance business, but that's across businesses, where people currently want to buy insurance online. And so that's one. So that's a very big play, which means that all the insurance companies are relooking at their digital strategy, the way they sell business, and the way they market the business as well. That's a big play for Tata AI itself. Given the last 3 years, over the last 3 years, we've done extremely well as an organization. As you see, we've moved from a number 17 to 18 position to a number 6 position. And we closed April as number 6 from number 17. And that's primarily because we were able to change the way we do business, create a high performance work culture, partner with the business to ensure that we drive volumes, drive market penetration, and make a difference to the employees' existence as well as experience as they work. Because as you know that in the insurance business, it's people that matters. People are software.
Yeah.
And our costs are also highly towards spent on people, and therefore since people become our main software, it is very important for us to engage our people, create that employee experience, and as I always say, create an employee delight, because it's the experience that delights the employee, finally engages the employee, gets him, fires his passion to deliver. Probably we were the best employer for the last 2 years in a succession.
So you see a huge correlation between focusing on people and investing in people and the success that you've had.
Yes, we invest pretty heavily on people right from the point of when we created this high performance work culture in the organization. We also had a change in leadership. We had a very dynamic managing director from McKinsey who joined us 2.5 years ago, and and that started the way to success, because in order to change the face of the way we did business, we had to first create a very high performance work culture, and therefore we had to weave all our HR interventions around the business. We had to, as much I should say, HR becoming a business partner. It was very important for the business partners to become HR partners, and we created a two-way dialogue between HR and the business, and not a one-way dialogue of just HR partnering with the business. But it was because people were the main play to take us to where we wanted to go. We went about that journey. We first started by creating a very differentiated compensation, so a pay for performance culture was set into the organization. So if you are a top rater, your pay is definitely in keeping with your performance. And we moved away from the traditional compensation structures that we had in the organization and created a pay for performance, and that worked beautifully for us. We brought in digitalization in HR and made sure that we have a complete employee experience. So right from the time we identify a candidate in the market, a potential candidate in the market, we digitalize the entire process. So we have an e-hiring process. So right from the contact to the employee to coming on for an interview, assessments, it was all completely digitalizing. But we brought in the element of human touch when the employee gets on board on day one. So it means that he just doesn't come to the office and he goes straight to his workplace and he has this laptop available and he starts his work. We created a human touch where he comes to the organization wherever he is, whether he's feet on street or whether he's a senior level or a mid-level employee. When he gets into the organization, he meets on the first day, right in the morning at 9 o'clock, he meets his boss, he meets the HR colleagues, and they greet him with a bouquet of flowers, they welcome him. There's a very traditional welcome for him. He's taken with the entire entourage to his workplace. He's seated there, he's given his computer, his laptop, his ID card, and he's looked after really well. His email ID is all configured, his visiting cards, and then at about 10 o'clock he's got his frame of his welcome picture on his table. So that's the human touch.
Yes.
The
small things that matter.
Yes.
So I'm going to come to you, Kristyl,
Yes.
in a bit to know more about that transformational journey. But before I do that, Moushumee, I'd love to have your point of view from the outside in, because Kristyl interestingly said that because our software is people, that's so important.
Sure.
Now you work with organizations where the service organizations, manufacturing organizations, so you really work with across. What do you see is common in that transformational journey or that digitalizational journey?
Okay, so what is common is that the lay of the land is changing, where product cycle times, product life cycles are basically getting shortened, right? Because of what Kristyl mentioned, digitalization is prevalent across all industries. So whether it's differentiated products and services, the life cycle of that is shortening. And as a result of which, even the workforce comes together for working on specific projects, on specific assignments. Gone are the days when people are sticking to an organization for a long duration, working on the same kind of stuff. That trend is changing, right? So we have people coming together, working on assignments, learning new stuff, regrouping, and going back into doing something else, unlearning, relearning. So that's one of the things which are getting, I find as a constant across many organizations across different sectors. The other common trend that I see is I think, coming to India also in a big way is the emergence of the contingent workforce, the emergence of gig economy, where again, the mentality of the workforce is such that they're not looking at very long-term employment cycles. They come together to do something that they're passionate about, and then they take a break, go and do something else, and they come back again. So that's the other thing that we're seeing. The third thing that we're seeing is the breakdown of hierarchical organization structures, moving into network of smaller teams. So with these kind of changes which are emerging, what is happening is, organizations are forced to take a look at, the whole employee experience, because there is a whole, diverse set of employees with different kinds of needs and aspirations and requirements. And therefore, the organizations have to take care of those differing needs across these diverse work groups. And obviously, which not only can get supported with, processes, but also the right kind of systems which will help create those differentiated experiences for these diverse work groups which are emerging. Incidentally, I can talk from my experience. We in SuccessFactors, for example, what we do, how we enable this process is, we don't look at processes per se, we look at personas, right? So across employees, managers, executives, across these very different type of workforce, we look at the personas and design the journey of each of these personas in course of their entire life cycle, and that's what basically the solution enables in helping create those superlative employee experiences.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So tell us, Kristyl, a little bit more about this transformational journey that the organization started 2.5 years ago. What are the key mandates? So maybe 2 years from today, I don't know if is there a cycle that you say, okay, this transformational journey is 2020, 2022?
Yes. So when we started off 2.5 years ago, we said that we want to grow our business by X volumes. We want to be a number so and so by X time, and the X time happens to be 2020.
Okay.
We also want to be the best employer or great place to work by 2020, but we realized we made it by 2060. So we grew by 150% in the first year itself, and then subsequently we grew by large volumes in the next year. So we realized that we actually made it faster, and we therefore should set out to again achieve very ambitious targets going into the future. We recently had a workshop where we re-looked at our vision, our mission, our values, and we're probably also working on looking at 2022 now. So we are extending our goalpost and saying that we want to grow by X plus times as we want to move.
When you look at 2022, is it what are the parameters? So one is of course business, growth.
Yes.
From people perspective, what are those success
from the people perspective, we say that we want to ensure that we have all our leaders, because as we grow as an organization, we've cut out growing at a much larger rate as an organization, and therefore where do we fund our people from? We certainly don't believe in funding them from outside, because as a part of the Tata organization, both the Tatas and AI, great parents to come together as Tata AI, and so a great parentage, and both have the same values of grow people internally, build leaders internally, and therefore we've said that for all our future capability building assignments, we're going to look internally. So that's a huge mandate. So when I say we're going to look internally to fund our talent and capability building plans, it would mean a huge implication for HR. In terms of our robust talent management process, ensure that our top talent goes to an assessment center to assess their performance and potential. So performance is really you see the track record of an individual, but potential is a different ball game. So therefore we have a very robust talent process where we assess the potential of our employees. Based on the assessment, we have very structured individual development plans, and we have a career conversation that we have with them, with their bosses, on a boss subordinate workshop scenario, and we make sure that the actualization of the plans are also rests with the employee and the boss. So it's not that it's one-sided, that you say, tell the employee you develop and we give you a role, but here we tell the boss that you need to develop the employee for a future role, and therefore we are looking at funding our talent in turn. So the huge mandate for us is to develop our people, build capability for the future.
Very nice, very nice. How are the trends that Moushumee is reflecting about the contingent workforce, the hierarchy really going away? How are all these things playing out?
That resonates with us, because when we are talking about hierarchies, breaking hierarchies, we need to do that if we have to grow as an organization. We also, when we also talking about assignments, as you mentioned, short term, we have a very structured process of cross-functional teams. We call them CFTs. So we have these top talent who go to various CFTs, even if it talks about a CFT on cost optimization. So we have new product designs. We have CFTs who work on these assignments. So that keeps them engaged apart from doing their jobs.
So everything has to be interlinked, no?
Yes.
So it's not that you spoke about your pay for performance, now you're speaking about leadership, career development, now you're talking about the fact that people want to work in projects. How does this whole thing, because it looks like a very complex amalgamation of a lot of things that organizations are doing.
It is. So the other thing I probably missed mentioning when you said, what are some of the trends? One of the other common thing which is emerging is people just don't want to get stuck in the dead end of a job. Everybody wants to learn, everybody wants to acquire new skills, right?
Yes.
And what she referred to about this, cross-functional teams coming together and working on something new, something innovative, I think that's a great way to really not to just keep them engaged, but also in terms of upskilling the workforce. So and that's something which is becoming very, very common, and which is also, I think, a stepping stone to the internal talent mobility that you were talking about.
And that's also it also gives us a lead into our building capability plans. Because you take a guy from a different function and you put him into in a cross-functional team. We watch his potential. We watch the fact that he has the aptitude to move to another role. And therefore, it's a feeder for us to move this person who has potential to another role. So there's a lot of job rotation that takes place also as a result of cross-functional team.
Absolutely.
So let's go. I love the piece that you spoke about, the persona and you also spoke
Yes.
about the importance of experiences.
Yes.
And you gave us that example of, you know, the first day of an employee.
Yes.
How do you create those experiences? Do you do it, you know, following personas, or you look at every process, or you look at what is the approach?
Well, I think we started off because we wanted to create that experience for an employee, and we wanted to create that delightful experience. We've also studied and seen that research shows that employees on their first day of work, if they really feel good and accepted, they stay on longer than an employee who is not really welcomed on his first day of work. So that first experience is very important, because what happens is, while we also put his photo of his welcome on his table, we email it to his family. So by the time the guy goes home or the lady goes home, there's a wow for his family.
Beautiful. It's such a small thing.
It's a small experience, but it goes a long way. And in fact, even in the group, in the Tata group, where we have something called the TBM assessment, the Tata Business Excellence, which you would be aware of, based on the Malcolm Baldrige model. And it was a best practice when our assessors came in and assessed the process, and they said that because when they walked around the floor, when they met new employees, people were delighted. They all said that my first day at work, it was a wow experience. I worked for 4 organizations, but I never had this experience. So these are the kind of experiences and touch points that we would like to give our employees, where they remember it, and finally they take off on a high. So their first day of work is in a high, and then they give their best, they're receptive to their goal sheets, because we must remember that as we are growing as an organization, we are putting pressure on existing employees. There is performance elasticity going to happen, where people would be really stretched beyond. And particularly the employees who've stayed on with us, we've got a whole lot of employees who've stayed on with the company, so long time employees who've stayed there and seen us when we were not on at rank 17, and now seeing us at rank 6. So the same rank 17 employees work much harder than when today, and therefore but they love working, they love coming to work. That's why our engagement scores were also high and the top quartile, because they see some meaning. They now know that they are a part of the winning team. They're growing roles, they're changing roles, they're moving departments, moving functions, and they see that they are also being a part of the success factor, and that gives them that high to say.
So from the example you were sharing about taking the persona, and in your case, of course, persona means across industries, because your product needs to be suitable for that new age individual, which is not necessarily the younger people, but the mindsets of all of us are changing as employees. So how do you look at that product development to fit to the organizational needs of companies across industries?
So I think what we do in SuccessFactors is we extensively invest in R&D, almost $1 billion worth of R&D that goes in every year, and we have close to about 8,000 odd people who are working on developing this product. We work very closely with our customers as well across different segments, who are basically who form as part of our product advisory, and which is how we are able to capture the trends which are there in the industry, across industries, across organizations. What are some of the emerging trends which we need to incorporate as part of the product functionality to be able to address those different personas. So one part of the persona is pertaining to the workforce across industries, but also within an organization. It's about the personas pertaining to, let's say, somebody who's a project manager, or somebody who's a recruiter, or somebody who's a learning officer. So each of them will have their own very specific requirements which the product has to cater to, right? In terms of being able to support that system, the person, the individual, to be more productive, to be more engaged, and so on and so forth. So I think the R&D efforts are put in both towards gathering what's happening across industries, as well as how the roles within the organizations are changing. Because as I said, the whole I would say the topography of the organizations are changing, wherein we are seeing the emergence of newer kind of roles, structures, and so on. So it basically the investment happens across both these areas to be able to make the product much more rich and much more inclusive.
So when you look at the future, and I'm intrigued on what you spoke about, different structures. So it's not the traditional way of operating, but also really leveraging your contingent workforce and looking at your talent in a very segmented way. Two questions I have, Kristyl, and I'm sorry I'm asking both the questions at the same time. One is, how do you see the structure of your current workforce changing when you look ahead of, you say, okay, now you're looking at 2022, what will be significantly different on how the structure of your organization looks like today? And the second question, and I'll remind you later, what will be the expectations of technology? Because I think from the product perspective, of course, it's not about just effectiveness, but it's also about the efficiency and productivity and engagement. You use those words, and I think it's very beautiful. From product perspective, you're not saying, I just want to help you, organize things, but I really want to empower and enable your individual. So tell us a little bit both. One is, how do you see that changing, and one is, what's the role that technology will play?
Okay, so the first one is in terms of changing, as I said, with our growth plans. And given that insurance is a huge market and we've not tapped the market as such, but if we were to tap the market and grow, then we would have to change our structures. Structures in terms of right now we are slightly taller, we are on a taller structure. We would have to get into a more leaner structure, flatter structure. And we would have to be so agile where our employees, we would have to also create that agility among employees, because it is not so easy when you bring down tall structures to flat structures and leaner structures, that it puts pressure on employees. And we could also be and there's hunt for talent, there's a talent war, we could also lose talent in the bargain. Because as Indians, so to say, we are very conscious about designations. We are also very conscious about hierarchies. We are conscious about the number of people who report into us. Correct. Right? And we, that is more important rather than the amount of money you get paid, because people don't really see that money, but they actually look at how many people are reporting to them, and the levels that they operate at.
And what's your span of control?
The span of control matters a lot to them. And therefore, if we have to really increase our span of control, so to say, but have flatter structures, we would have to go back to the drawing board and create a different structure, structure for culture to be driven in the organization. And we are in the process of working on it, in fact, and we are looking at it because it's very important to ensure that we have the right values to drive culture. But yes, so to answer your question, we will have to change our structures. We have something called the target operating model, which is all about structure. It's all about where we want to see ourselves as business, as a strategy for the organization. So we're talking about a business strategy in place, and based on the business strategy, what's our the right term to achieve the strategy going to be?
What will be the role that technology will play? Because in that term,
yes, because the technology gets inbuilt into term, because you would have when you have leaner structures, when you have fewer people, when you change the entire organization face, to say, technology will play an important role, and we are looking at a technological platform to support our structures. When it comes to people, how would it impact people? We say that we don't want to ask people to go, but therefore we're growing as an organization. And therefore we have new businesses, so we move people into new businesses. But we also have a new generation of people, so to say, because we've got into a direct sales force model as well. And in this direct sales force model, we have people in the age of about 22 to 25, and they're all very young, very yuppie. They have high energy levels, and they want to log in on their phone
they don't want to come to the office to log in on the laptop, so they want to log in the attendance on the phone, they want everything on their phone. So the entire HR services vertical is driven digitally right now.
That's the expectation.
That's the basic.
So as organizations are looking at these target operating model, I love
Yes.
the way you
Yes.
put it. It's of course creating that pressure that you're in a bimodal or a trimodal
Yes.
mode. Some part of the organization operates the way it used to,
Yeah.
then some new parts are getting transformed, and then some. How do you see organizations manage that change process? As a you have the privilege to be outside and see that change happen. What is your reflection and learning about how to make that more seamless? Because organizations are going flat, and I think we'd love to
That's
hear
a
your
common,
point of view.
yeah.
Organizations have more pressure on learning while we are all growing, but there's pressure on the individual to upskill.
Yes.
So how have you seen companies who crack it and do it really well manage that change process?
Sure. So I think the key lies in because, and I'm talking more from SuccessFactors adoption perspective.
Yeah.
How we've seen organizations go on this journey is the key lies in the product. It is something that organizations just take on from there and kind of roll it out. So it's a kind of move from the erstwhile days of business process re-engineering, where the system itself ensures that the processes get re-engineered as they get implemented. So I think that's the only way that we have seen, especially on the cloud journey. That's how organizations are able to take advantage of what the solution has to offer across the table.
So from just looking at functionalities to really jumping into taking the most advantage of the product.
Correct.
But why will you not do that? I mean, you're anyway investing on a technology product. What is stopping organizations to fulfill the complete promise of the product?
Okay, so I think here we also need to understand that we're dealing with the most complex element, which is people, right? So while technology for technology's sake is great, but it also has to get married to people's wants, aspirations, resistance to change, and all of that, right? So I think it's a fine balancing act, really, and for organizations who've really cracked the code, it's about really striking that right balance between the people aspect, and because if you want to adopt what the system has to offer, there are a plethora of things. Correct. Right? I was talking about the R&D investments. There are areas around, let's say, machine learning, let's say artificial intelligence, a lot of innovations that are being constantly brought in. Now let's say when we go into a very typical traditional manufacturing customer. Correct. In India, nothing Correct. Against them. Absolutely. So to say, but then again the thought process, while they are going on a cloud journey, but are they ready for Correct. Adopting something which is around machine learning, which is around AI right now? Maybe, may not be. So that's where possibly it varies from organization to organization. It varies, it depends also on the culture, it depends on how ready the organization is to embrace change. Right, and this definitely will be a change when you are trying to change processes or drive change through the use of technology.
Thanks, Moushumee. So this bimodal, trimodal, do you feel it as well as a HR leader? Because to some extent you're looking at technology, you're looking at changing this target operating model also affects your HR.
Yes,
so
in a big way.
So how are you managing this?
See, I think it has been seamless for me to manage because it's very important, as I say, HR must get the buy-in of the business leaders. So once that buy-in happens, half the battle is won. So that's one part. The other part is the business leaders have to get the buy-in of the HR mandate, and the other half is won. So we work seamlessly as a team, and we work together to get it done. So when it comes to decision making, seamless, I would say. And when it comes to execution of those decisions, again seamless, because both of us work together. So I think the real ingredient for it to be a success would be the buy-in of the top management. and likewise.
Yeah.
So the bimodal, the trimodal, it works very well for us.
Yeah. So my last question to both of you for our viewers today.
Yes.
Some of them are in the early stage of transformational journey, some maybe in the middle. Mostly will be people in these two categories watching this video because they're wanting to learn from both of you. What will be your advice to them as the HR leader who's actually driving the talent transformation agenda? What should they stop doing, continue doing, and start doing?
I would say the first thing is to stay invested
Yeah.
in the organization, to believe in the sizzler rather than the steak, to actually believe the organization wants to make a difference to each one, and and to actually believe that they would benefit from the organization, and they would see a growth journey along with the organization, and therefore my advice would be to keep learning, to keep changing, and to keep growing with the organization.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks.
Again, from a technology, product vendor perspective, the way I would look at it is, for those who are looking at embarking on this journey, it's one thing to look at point solutions to start with, but it always makes sense to look at the entire talent management piece holistically, and look at offerings in the market which give you the range and breadth of the solution. That is one. The other is, just like she mentioned about being invested in people. I think from a buyer's perspective, when somebody is looking at a technology product, it's also important to see how invested the organization is in terms of innovation, right? So what is it that is there in the product roadmap? That is something that needs to be definitely, that needs to be considered. And last but not the least, this being a cloud offering, I think the overarching considerations in terms of scalability, in terms of enterprise grade security or data privacy. So these are some of the other factors that obviously organizations need to look at before embarking on this journey.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks, Moushumee. Thanks, Kristyl. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Same here.